وقل رب زدني علما.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Just remove the tea from on top of the books. So today then we are going to be beginning the story of Musa alayhi salam. Previously we went through the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and now we're going to do the story of Musa alayhi salam. However, the method is going to be different. When we did the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, we went through all of the surah in the Quran. We went through basically like a tafsir of the whole chapter in the Quran talking about Yusuf alayhi salam. With regards to Musa alayhi salam, his story is much more spread out throughout the Quran. And so we are not going to be doing a tafsir of every section of the Quran where Musa alayhi salam is mentioned. Instead, it is going to be a more general overview of some of the main points from the story of Musa alayhi salam. To begin with, we'll mention a brief introduction from Al-Shaykh Al-Uthaymin rahimahullah ta'ala regarding Musa alayhi salam. He mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا وَسُلْطَانٍ مُبِينٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirms in the Quran that indeed we sent Musa alayhi salam with our ayat and with a clear guidance. And he says, Musa huwa ibn Imran. Musa is the son of Imran. أفضل أنبياء بني إسرائيل وأعظمهم وأشدهم. He is Musa, the son of Imran, and he was the best of the prophets of Bani Israel. He was the best of the prophets of Bani Israel and the greatest of their prophets and the most powerful, strong of their prophets. وهو من أشد الأنبياء وأقواهم. Musa alayhi salam is known as being one of the most powerful prophets, physically strong and generally being a prophet of strength, a prophet who had some severity with him, had strength and power in him, and he was known for that. Musa alayhi salam. ويدلك على ذلك ما فعله قبل النبوة وما فعله بعد النبوة. And there are examples of things that Musa alayhi salam did from before he actually became a prophet, and examples of things he did after he became a prophet too, that indicate his strength, that he was a powerful man, a man of strength and ability. فَقَبْلَ النُّبُوَّةِ, so an example from before prophethood. An example from before Musa alayhi salam becoming a prophet is مر برجل من قومه يخاصم رجلا من عدوه فوكزه موسى فقضى عليه. The famous story mentioned in the Quran when Musa alayhi salam came, and this was before he became a prophet. He came across a man from his people, arguing with a man from those who were not of his people, of his clan. And so when he saw the two of them arguing and the one from his own people sought help from him, he struck the other man, and with that strike ended up killing him. With that strike ended up killing him. And that is an example to highlight how Musa alayhi salam was a man of strength and power. With that strike, he ended up killing that man. And that is an example of something that occurred before he became a prophet. And there are other examples. وَبَعْدَ النُّبُوَّةِ, an example from after he had now become a prophet. لما رجع ورأى أنهم أشركوا بالله غضب غضبا شديدا فألقى الألواح التي كتب الله بها التوراة ألقاها. قال بعضهم فتكسرت. ألقى الألواح وأخذ برأس أخيه هارون وهو نبي من الأنبياء مشارك له في النبوة. That when, and we'll do the full story later, but just as an example for now, when Musa alayhi salam returned and he saw that the people had begun committing shirk, when he returned and he saw that the people had begun committing shirk, so he became angry. He was angered at what he saw from them. And it is mentioned how he threw down the tablets. He threw down the tablets in which what was written in them? The Torah, the revelation. The Torah was written in those tablets. It is mentioned he threw down those tablets. And some of the scholars, they say that they smashed into pieces. And then it's mentioned in that story how he grabbed hold of his brother Harun by the hair, by the beard. And it's mentioned in the Quran, this particular incident, أخذ برأس أخيه يجره إليه, grabbed hold of his brother, pulling him towards himself. And then he said, يا ابن لا تأخذ بلحيتي ولا برأسي إني خشيت أن تقول فرقت بين بني إسرائيل ولم ترقب قولي. So then his brother says, oh son of my mother, brothers they were, do not take me by the beard nor by my head. Do not grab a hold of me in this way. Indeed, I feared that you would say to me that I have split up between them and I have not guarded over and fulfilled what you asked of me. وَلَمَّا سَكَتَ عَن مُوسَى الْغَضَبِ أَخَذَ الْأَلْوَاحِ. And then it mentions when Musa alayhi salam calmed down, then he picked up those tablets that the Torah was written in. And هذا يدل على قوته وشدته عليه الصلاة والسلام. So this indicates that he was a man of power and strength. He was a man physically strong, and we'll see in the story later on how he could move rocks that other men would require multiple numbers to do so. So he was a man of strength and power and severity. وَهَذَا مِنَ الْحِكْمَةِ. A person may say, but why? Why is it that Musa alayhi salam had those characteristics and maybe other prophets and messengers did not do so? There is a wisdom behind that. There is a wisdom behind the fact that Musa alayhi salam was a man who was strong, powerful, strong inside and strong outside, a man of severity and a man who we would say these days maybe words like tough. He was a man of that nature. Why? What's the wisdom behind that? Because at his time he was sent when another man who considered himself to be of power and strength and authority over the people, the Pharaoh, was present. So it is from the wisdom that a prophet was sent who could stand up to the Pharaoh equally and give him that da'wah with strength and with that force, without fear, without any consequence. And that is what Shaykh al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala says, that Pharaoh was a man of authority upon the land, a man of power and strength. And so Musa alayhi salam was sent to him also as a man of power and strength and firm belief, a man who could stand up to Pharaoh and give him the da'wah face to face without any fear. And so Musa alayhi salam was given these characteristics of being of that nature of strength. And not only because of Pharaoh, but because of Bani Israel themselves. Bani Israel themselves at that time, many of them had gone astray. And they were in opposition, and there were all types of affairs of arrogance and other things occurring within Bani Israel at the time. So it required a prophet who could be severe where needed and indicate and show his power and give that da'wah with strength to the likes of Bani Israel at the time, because of how they had fallen aside and fallen away from the upright guidance. ولهذا لا يوجد شعب من الشعوب فيما نعلم مثل بني إسرائيل في العتو والنفور والاستكبار إلى حد أنه لما نعم. Shaykh al-Uthaymeen says, when you look at the histories of the nations that went by, the nations of the different prophets and different messengers, you do not come across a nation of people who are greater in their transgression or in their falling apart and away from the guidance and in their arrogance. You do not find a nation greater in those affairs than Bani Israel. And there are examples mentioned in the Quran. Some of those will come to in the story. Some brief examples the Shaykh mentions when the fighting was prescribed upon them. They said to Musa, اذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنا هاهنا قاعدون. In the story mentioned in the Quran, they said, in that land there are a people of strength, and we will not enter until they leave. Go you, Musa, and your Lord. Musa, you go and your Lord, we're staying here. And they refused. They refused to go and to participate. فلهذا كان من الحكمة أن يكون هذه الرسول على هذا النحو من الشدة لمناسبة من أرسل إليه من فرعون وبني إسرائيل. And so it was appropriate and suitable that the messenger sent to the likes of Pharaoh and to the likes of Bani Israel and how they were. It needed somebody of that powerful character to be sent to the likes of those people at that time. And so Musa alayhi salam was given that powerful character as well as physical power and strength as a prophet and messenger sent to all of those people. And so Allah says in the Quran that we sent him with our ayat. We sent him with our ayat, with our signs, in order to clarify to the people. And there were many signs, some of those which we'll get to, regarding the story of the magicians and the stick and all of those incidents that occurred from the miracles and the signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon Musa alayhi salam. Then, after that brief introduction, we will also have a look at some more background into the story of Musa alayhi salam before beginning in detail into some of the subjects of that story. This story of Musa alayhi salam is connected to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, because prior to Musa alayhi salam in the land of Egypt, who had arrived earlier prior to him by generations, Yusuf alayhi salam. And then at the end of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, we learnt that he had brought all of his family members, extended family members, you remember, all of his extended family had come and moved into Egypt also. And they mention, some of them, that the extended family members of Yusuf who came at that time, the Canaaniyun, were approximately in the figure of 60 to 70 members of the family. They moved to Egypt, from Canaan to Egypt. 60 or 70 of his family members at that time, they came to Egypt at that time. And so then, and Yaqub, his father, of course, then Yusuf, of course, and then after they died and generations went by, the people, and from that lineage they are all known as, from Yaqub and Yusuf and all of that, they are the Bani Israel. So at that time they were upon uprightness and they were respected amongst the people in Egypt where they had come. But as generations went by and time went by, they began to lose their connection to that uprightness. And as time went by, eventually they became like everybody else. And there was no distinguishing between them and the other people. They were in fact looked down upon by some of the other Egyptians, to the extent it even became an affair where the actual Egyptians began to say that you are not actual residents of this land. There started to become some issue with Bani Israel. And then when the Pharaoh of that time, and remember, Pharaoh was not his name, Pharaoh was the title given to the leaders of Egypt at that time. There is a particular name that they mention of the Pharaoh. I don't remember now, but inshallah next time I'll come with that name, inshallah. There's a name mentioned by some of the historians as to what the name of the Pharaoh at the time of Musa actually was, what his name actually was. There are some opinions, it is not established as such, but it's mentioned. So when he came into power, he absolutely belittled Bani Israel. He made it basically into a caste system. The Pharaoh gave preference to his people of Egypt, and he looked down upon the lineage of all of those Bani Israel, and he belittled them and did not give them the same types of rights as others. So they mentioned that type of thing was beginning to occur. at the time of when the Pharaoh came, at the time of Musa alayhi salam. Then, if we go into the actual details from the start of the story, and this is from again Shaykh Abdul Rahman As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala. That Pharaoh who came into power, they say that some sorcerers, some fortune tellers, they said to him that a boy will be born from amongst the people here. He will rise up one day and destroy you. And so when he heard that, he began slaughtering all of the baby boys. And so Shaykh Abdul Rahman As-Sa'di, he mentions here, ولد في وقت قد اشتد فيه فرعون على بني إسرائيل. Musa alayhi salam was born at a time when that Pharaoh of that time was being severe upon Bani Israel. He was very severe to Bani Israel at that time. فكان يذبح كل مولود ذكر. He would slaughter every baby boy that was born. يولد من بني إسرائيل, from Bani Israel. From Bani Israel, any baby boy that was born to one of their women, he would have his guards slaughter that boy. ويستحيي النساء للخدمة والامتهان. And he would allow the women to live. He would allow the women, the mothers, to live, and they would be slave girls, or they would be for the purpose of serving his kingdom. But all of the boys that were born at that time, because of what he had been told, that there will be a boy, he will rise up from amongst their children, and he will be the cause of your destruction one day. So to try and prevent that, he began slaughtering all of the boys that were born. In fact, it mentions in the books of history, he had his guards. His guards would go and circle around the town, around the city, and every time they became aware of a pregnant woman from Bani Israel, they would supervise that house. And as soon as the child was born, they would go and check. If it's a boy, slaughter him. Guards keeping an eye on who the pregnant women were. And when they gave birth, they would go and check, is it a boy or a girl? If it's a boy, they would slaughter that child. فَلَمَّا وَلَدَتْهُ أُمُّهُ خَافَتْ عَلَيْهِ خَوْفًا شَدِيدًا. So when Musa's mother gave birth to him, it was during that time when baby boys were being slaughtered by Pharaoh. So the mother of Musa, when she gave birth, she was extremely fearful that perhaps the gods would become alerted to her birth, to the child, and it was a son, and they would come and kill him too. So she was extremely worried at that time. فإن فرعون جعل على بني إسرائيل من يرقب نساءهم ومواليدهم. Pharaoh had appointed security, guards, to go around the city keeping an eye on all of the households where the women were pregnant from Bani Israel, to supervise and keep an eye on them. وَكَانَ نَعَمْ. So that whenever a baby boy was born, the gods would go and kill him. So she was very worried about her son, Musa alayhi salam, being killed by the Pharaoh. وَكَانَ بَيْتُهَا عَلَى ضَفَّةِ النَّهْرِ النِّيلِ. And her house, the house of the mother of Musa alayhi salam, her house was on the river bank of which river? The Nile. On the river bank of the Nile. That's where her house was. فألهمها الله أن وضعت له تابوتا إذا خافت أحدا ألقته في اليم وربطته بحبل لئلا تجري به جرية الماء. So what she would do is, Allah inspired her with a method of protecting Musa alayhi salam, her newborn at that time. Whenever she feared the guards were coming to her area, that they may check up on her house or they may check up on the area if there are any newborns, whenever she feared that, she had made a small the baby basket thing, the small baby basket. She had made one of those baby basket type of things, and she would put Musa alayhi salam into that basket, which she would then put into the river Nile and tie it up with a rope to the bank so that it wouldn't float away. But when the security guards they came, they wouldn't go and check the river for a baby there. They would come and check the house and check the area and the neighborhood, but they wouldn't go and check at the river if there's a baby in a basket floating in the river, of course. So that's what she would do whenever she feared the guards would be coming or checking the area. She would put Musa alayhi salam into that basket, put it onto the river and tie it up to the river bank so it doesn't float away. And then when the guards were gone, they had done their round, she would go and bring him back to the house. ومن لطف الله بها أنه أوحى لها ولا تخافي ولا تحزني إنا رادوه إليك وجاعلوه من المرسلين. And it mentions in the Quran how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to her that do not fear and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you and make him from the messengers. Because what happened one day, فَلَمَّا أَلْقَتْهُ ذَاتَ يَوْمٍ انفلت رباط التابوت فذهب الماء بالتابوت الذي في وسطه موسى. One day when she feared again there may be a security check or a round occurring, she took Musa alayhi salam into the basket, into the river, tied it up to the river bank, but the rope became loose on that one occasion. And so the basket floated away in the river Nile. The rope became loose, and so the basket floated away in the river Nile. وَمِن قَدَرِ اللَّهِ, and it is from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَن وَقَعَ فِي يَدِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ, that the basket was found by the people of Pharaoh, found by his associates. وَجِيءَ بِهِ إِلَى امْرَأَةِ فِرْعَوْنَ آسِيَةَ, and those who found the baby floating, they brought it back and showed it to the wife of Pharaoh, Asiya. They showed her this baby they found floating in the river Nile in the basket. They came and showed the wife of Pharaoh, Asiya. فلما رأته أحبته حبا شديدا, and when she saw this baby that they brought to her, she instantly fell in love with this baby. She fell in love with this baby, a great love for this baby. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ قَدْ أَلْقَى عَلَيْهِ الْمَحَبَّةَ فِي الْقُلُوبِ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed that those who saw Musa alayhi salam, love was placed into their hearts for him. And so the wife of Pharaoh, her heart inclined to Musa alayhi salam, this baby, and she loved and adored this baby that they had brought to her. وشاع الخبر ووصل إلى فرعون. News began to spread that a baby was found in the river Nile, and that it was brought back to the household of Pharaoh, and that it was taken to Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh. Of course, that news began to spread amongst the people until it came to Pharaoh himself, until he was informed of this occurrence, of this story of what had happened, that they'd found the baby, and and it was a boy, of course, a boy, and they had brought it back, and Asiya, his wife, had taken the baby boy. As soon as he found out about this, and that it was a baby boy, his instant reaction was, kill it then, it's a boy. And he had been told by the sorcerers and the fortune tellers that there will be a baby boy born, and then will rise up one day against you and destroy you. And so to avoid that, his only objective with all baby boys was kill them. So when he heard طَلَبَهُ لِيَقْتُلَهُ, he said to his people, go bring the boy. Bring that baby boy so that we can kill him. But then his wife, Asiya, interjected. She said, قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ. She said, but this boy, this baby, will be the coolness of the eyes for me and for you. To have this baby boy will bring joy to us, to me and to you. There will be joy for us in having this baby. لا تقتلوه. Don't kill him. Don't kill this one. Don't kill him. عسى أن ينفعنا أو نتخذه ولدا. Perhaps he will benefit us in some way, or we'll take him, adopt him as a child of our own. And there will be joy for us to have a child and a baby. Leave this one, do not kill this one. فَنَجَى بِهَذَا السَّبَبِ مِنْ قَتْلِهِمْ. And so Pharaoh allowed this one to pass. Even though it was his absolute policy, all baby boys from Bani Israel to be slaughtered. From the convincing of his wife, and the decree of Allah, of course, that all of it occurred in this way. His wife then convinced him, leave this one baby, it will be joy for us. He was found abandoned in the river Nile. We'll keep him, there will be joy for us to have him, a baby, and it will be coolness for our eyes, and maybe he will be of benefit to us, so we'll take him as a child of our own. And so Pharaoh allowed that one to pass. And of course, that one he allowed to pass was Musa alayhi salam. So Allah decreed that Musa alayhi salam was saved from the slaughtering of Pharaoh in this way. وكان هذا الأثر الطيب والمقدمة الصالحة من السعي المشكور عند الله. So this opening to the life of Musa alayhi salam was an introduction into the life of Musa and what was going to occur in the life of Musa alayhi salam. It was like an introduction, this difficulty right from the minute he was born, that there was a death sentence on him from the minute he was born by the Pharaoh, and yet Allah decreed for him to be saved in this way, and not only to be saved, but to be saved by the very one who desired to slaughter him. And yet by the decree of Allah, he was saved in that household of Pharaoh himself. فكان هذا من أسباب هدايتها وإيمانها بموسى بعد ذلك. And in the end, as you know, the wife of Pharaoh actually accepted and believed in Musa alayhi salam, and she was a believer, and this was the cause behind it by the decree of Allah. Musa alayhi salam ending up in her household, ending up as her child being raised, and that was from the means of her accepting the message of Musa alayhi salam thereafter and becoming a believer. And in fact, as we know, that she is considered as one of the best women believers, one of the best of the believers from the women, Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh. However, when Pharaoh was found by the household, when Musa alayhi salam was found by the household of Pharaoh, so now he was taken in and safe. But as for his mother, she was distraught. She had lost her child. Her child was taken in, found as a lost baby, and not just taken in by anybody, taken in by Pharaoh. She was distraught that this is it, she's lost her baby. أما موسى فإنها فزعت وأصبح فؤادها فارغا وكاد الصبر أن يغلب فيها. And so she was distraught, and her heart became void, as a vacuum, as an empty heart, at the loss of her baby, at the loss of her child, Musa alayhi salam. And he mentions in the Quran regarding her, إن كادت لتبدي به لولا أن ربطنا على قلبها لتكون من المؤمنين. Allah mentions how her heart was made firm during that great difficulty and trial so that she may be from the believers. وقالت لأخته قصيه وتحسسي عنه. And then it mentions how she, the mother of Musa alayhi salam, said to her other child, a daughter, the sister of Musa alayhi salam, she said to her, go and search in the city. Go and search and look out and see if you can identify where Musa alayhi salam is. And because he was not, Musa alayhi salam was not doing what? Suckling. وكانت امرأة فرعون قد عرضت عليه المراضع فلم يقبل ثدي امرأة وعطش وجعل يتلوى من الجوع. Musa alayhi salam would not suckle from any woman. And Pharaoh, the most powerful household in the land, they had brought in multiple wet nurses, and Musa would not suckle from any of them. They had brought in multiple wet nurses, but Musa would not suckle from any of them. And so he began to experience extreme thirst, a baby who does not drink anything. He began to experience extreme thirst and hunger. And it got to the level where they began to fear for the safety of him, of his survival, that he wasn't drinking, wasn't suckling from any wet nurse, and he was beginning to struggle from the thirst. So then when it got to that severe level, they went out into the streets. They went out into the streets. أخرجوه إلى الطريق لعل الله أن ييسر له أحدا. They took him out into the streets looking, anybody can. They witnessed this baby. فحانت من أخته نظرة إليه وبصرت به عن جنب وهم لا يشعرون بشأنها. So when they went out in the streets in kind of like a panic, that he's not drinking at all from anyone, we need someone now. Out in the streets, and who was in the streets at the time? His sister, who his mother has sent out. The mother of Musa had sent out her daughter, the sister of Musa, to go and look. And at this time, when they came out in a panic looking for a witness, his sister was there in the streets, and she noticed and she realized, that's him. That is Musa. So his sister recognized and realized without them realizing of her presence or recognizing her presence. She was just one from amongst the people in the streets. They had no idea that she's connected to him or she recognizes him. She was just one from amongst the crowd. فلما أقبلت عليه وفهمت منهم أنهم يطلبون له مرضعا. So then the sister of Musa casually approached them as other people in the street were approaching them. This was like a panic kind of situation, looking for a witness. She approached them casually as others were approaching them. And she discovered that they are looking for a witness, that the baby will not suckle. So she says to them casually, as though she's just any other random person in the street, she says, هل أدلكم على أهل بيت يكفلونه لكم وهم له ناصحون فرددناه إلى أمه كي تقر عينها ولا تحزن. She says, shall I not show you to a household? I can show you to a household who will look after this baby. They will look after this baby and they will have his best interests at heart. They will be able to look after the baby. They'll be able to take care of him. They'll have his best interests at heart. And so, of course, she guided them back to her own house, to her own mother, the mother of the baby, the mother of Musa alayhi salam. And that's why Allah says then, فَرَدَدَنَاهُ إِلَىٰ أُمِّهِ. We then returned him back to his mother. Returned Musa alayhi salam back to his mother. كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا. So that her eye, or as we say, the coolness of her eye, meaning that it would bring joy to her once again. We returned Musa to her so that it would bring joy to her, and so that she would not grieve any further. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. So that she would not grieve any further. ثم ذكر الله في هذه السورة قصة مفصلة واضحة وكيف تنقلت به الأحوال قراءتها كافية عن شرح معناها. So then, after this initial incident that occurred at the birth of Musa alayhi salam, and Allah decreed his survival even though all the other baby boys were being slaughtered, and miraculously not only decreed his survival but decreed his survival at the hands of the very man who was slaughtering all the others. Then after that, that is the introduction to the beginning of it. Then after that, when Musa alayhi salam is raised and grows up, then begins all of the other stages of the story in terms of the da'wah that Musa alayhi salam began with to Pharaoh, how he was commanded to go to Pharaoh, and the whole story of Musa alayhi salam even before being commanded to go to Pharaoh, when he struck that man and killed him and then he fled, and the story with the two daughters and all of those affairs. Insha'Allah ta'ala, that is what we're going to do in the second part. Today was a general introduction into who Musa alayhi salam was, his character, his strength, his power, and the reason why Allah made him that way, to make it suitable and appropriate to give da'wah to another man who was of that type of character, Pharaoh. And people who were of that type of transgression or of that type of waywardness from Bani Israel, so it was suitable to send a man of that nature to them. And then the introduction or background to how Musa alayhi salam was born. And at that time, the sorcerer or the soothsayer had told the Pharaoh that there's going to be a baby born who will rise up one day and destroy you. And so he had begun killing them. يُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَهُمْ. As Allah said in the Quran, they were sacrificing, slaughtering their sons, and they were allowing their women to live. Slaughtering their sons, but allowing their women to live. That's the background. Next week, then, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to do the story regarding the magicians and what happened with Musa alayhi salam and the magicians at that time. We'll do the story of Musa alayhi salam and his marriage initially. After he struck the man and killed him, then he fled, and then his marriage that occurred. We'll cover that section, and obviously we'll cover the section regarding when they fled Egypt and the splitting of the sea. Some of those main events from the life of Musa alayhi salam, all of those main events, we'll briefly go over them in the second lecture, which is in 2 weeks' time, insha'Allah ta'ala.